Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, President Biden honors heroes from January the 6th. This is the second anniversary for the insurrection that took place on January 6th, 2020. We'll share with you the big recipients of the president's medals and how he has showed respect, especially to some of those black heroes. We'll have that conversation. Also, could there possibly be a black GOP Speaker of the House? Well, as the Republican Party has ended their 12th round of voting, now there's a name of a black Florida lawmaker who might be a consideration for the post. What? We'll be checking in with Suzette Speaks down in Florida to see what's the likelihood of this happening. And then we're also going to be checking in with Sinead Nwankwo to talk about this latest situation. Let me share this with you folks very quickly. If you're looking at the issue of, let me get this, check this out. Ron DeSantis has now reached out to colleges and universities down in Florida to try to possibly target those schools and those staff and personnel who might be teaching CRT. We'll have that conversation as well. So stay with us. There's a lot to get to. Today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. A couple of things that are happening, folks. First and foremost, we're going to have a special show today. The first hour, we're going to do live conversation. Then the second hour, we're going to switch over just to do some best of conversations, some great conversations that you may have missed from 2022. We'll be featuring that here on some of those discussions here on today's show. So definitely don't check out after the first hour, because you never know what we talked about. You may say, oh, you know what? I wasn't here for that conversation. So tune in for the second hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let's jump right in because we got a lot to cover. We're going to be joined in a few moments by our two culture crew members, Suzette Speaks, TV host and attorney out of the state of Florida, and my brother, Sinead Nwankwo, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, to talk about some of the big topics. First and foremost, this is the second year of January, since January the 6th, 2020. Y'all remember this, and we've been talking about this the whole year, how there was a white mob, a white group of Trump supporters who essentially stormed the Capitol and tried to stop the certification of the 2020 votes for the 2020 election. Now, since that time, of course, a whole wide range of things have happened, from everything from the January 6th committee to even hundreds of arrests of those individuals who participated in that insurrection attempt. Now, also the biggest things, of course, former President Donald Trump has been, it's been recommended by the January 6th committee that he is officially charged by the Department of Justice for his involvement for inciting that insurrection. Now, today, President Biden took the time to honor heroes of the January 6th storming of the Capitol. He honored 12 Americans. 4 out of those 12 Americans were Black. So let me just share with you very quickly who those individuals were and how the president decided to take time to honor them today. Then we're going to bring in Suzette Speaks and Sinead to get their take on it. But take a look at this. This is a report that our sister April Ryan had put out today, earlier this morning, about how the president decided to move forward in honoring those who decided to say enough was, who made sure that democracy still stays intact on January the 6th. The president said he delivered remarks and he honored some of those heroes on January the 6th insurrection on the second anniversary. The 12 honorees, 4 of whom are Black, will receive the Presidential Citizens Medal, one of the nation's highest civilian honors. The White House said that each recipient performed exemplary deeds of service for their country or their fellow citizens. Now, some of the citizens being honored include Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn and Eugene Goodman, and mother-daughter duo Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who worked as Fulton County, Georgia election officials during the 2020 presidential election, and former Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick will be honored posthumously. I want to bring in Suzette. I want to bring in Shanadu to talk about this. This is the second year, and I want to get their take on how the president is moving forward and honoring, especially those Black folks who said that they were going to do their part to uphold democracy. Suzette, Shanadu, good to have y'all here on Friday. I'm really excited about today's conversation.
Good to be here. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday. This is not how you say Suzette. Happy Friday.
Absolutely. Got to bring some joy.
I got to bring some joy in this world. Let's talk about this. First and foremost, the president decided to honor 4 out of 12 Americans, 4 Black Americans during today's ceremony, Suzette. Why is this significant? You know, and I'm not saying it to be crazy, but I'm just saying, like, this is, we know what, like, Eugene Goodman, he was the security officer that kind of led the way, which was the craziest situation I probably ever seen on TV, where you got this mob of like white Trump supporters who were calling for people to be killed. And then this like Black officer, Capitol Police officer, is like, oh, y'all want to kill somebody? Follow me. And then it's like, he leads them. And I mean, I'm telling you, and when I first saw this video, Suzette, I said to myself, this man got the armor of God protecting him, because we don't know how that situation could have played out. And I'm being dead ass serious. Like I was like, they see him and they might automatically think, oh, okay, he's one of them, but nothing happened to him.
Yeah, this is an amazing kind of time that we're in, Farajii. First of all, I want to send my deepest condolences to everyone who is still affected by the January 6th insurrection. When we look back, and I'm glad President Biden is taking a moment out of his schedule to mark this occasion. It's easy to forget how incredibly outrageous, painful, non-patriotic this day really was. And what really strikes me, Farajii, is I'm watching the vote for the Speaker of the House, is that many on the far right who participated and really encouraged the behavior of the overthrow, literally, of our government 2 years ago today, is that so many of them are seated in our U.S. Congress and are really influential right now, even in the Speaker election. So I'm glad we have at least a side-by-side moment to reflect on what actually happened, that we are getting to see so many of these heroes honored the way they should be, and that we never forget. We are still in the midst of having several hundred people prosecuted for their roles. And I think Merrick Garland and the Justice Department has said, be patient. We're using all of the means of the Justice Department. And of course, there are a lot of super sleuths that are watching these videos from 2 years ago that are helping law enforcement track down people so that they are held to account. But I think it's a wonderful way of remembering a really dark day, but at the same time, recognizing some of the unsung heroes of the day.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I totally agree with you on that. Shanadu, what's your take on this? I mean, when we talk about January 6th and what happened, we talk about racism, we talk about white supremacy. We don't really have a conversation about those Black folks who stood up to all of that on that particular day. And then in the case of like the mother and daughter duo down in Georgia, how they, I remember hearing their testimony from the January 6th committee, where they said they experienced so much harassment, death threats. I mean, they were attacked because of simply doing their job. So, can you give us some context as to why this is an important day for Black America just as much as it is for the rest of America?
Ooh, well, it's an important day. It's very funny. On my neck, I have I don't even know what to call this, an ID. I was just at the Whitley Plantation here in Louisiana. So it's which is another place where white people do crazy things. So it's a historical thing. But I'm going to leave that there. As it pertains to a good day in Black America, I would say so, because the Presidential Medal of Freedom, although it's an auspicious honor, I don't want us to get lost in the pomps and circumstance of giving those. Are you going to make sure that these folks have health care for the rest of their life, even if that they have mental health taken care of? I don't even know if these people will be able to go back to work. They won't. These people were attacked in their own country by their own countrymen. That could do a lot of psychological damage for these folks. And that's kind of where I'm at, right? This is a great thing to honor them. And America loves to honor people with these representations, these idols, these statues, these medals. But what does that do for these people in the fiduciary sense? Are they being well taken care of? And I think we get lost sometimes in the hoi polloi of the excitement of the honor. But that honor doesn't feed my family. That honor doesn't take care of the needs that I now have due to what happened on that very horrific day. So I think it's a kind of it's a mid-grade excitement, but what then? Do you give me this honor and now you feel like that is all that has to be done to represent what I and or those folks and their families, what they're going to go through forever? You know?
No, and I think that brings up, a valid point around the situation, because it's like we do have a lot of conversation about, we do love the pomp and circumstance of things, but when it comes down to the substance, to the meat and potatoes, you're right. They should be taken care of. I mean, these were the ones that decided to put their lives on the line to do what we all have been encouraged to do, which is to fight for, quote unquote, our democracy. And so why shouldn't they be taken care of by the government? Why shouldn't they, receive some incentive or some level of benefit or even some level of protection because of their role in stopping, or at least, Suzette, quelling some of the issues, or quelling what could have been a much more fatal day. We can talk about the killing of Officer Sicknick, and we can certainly talk about the damage that were done to the other officers and who lived through that experience. But that was a really, really crazy day. I mean, I don't know what was more shocking to American history. I don't know whether it was 9/11. I was certainly around for that to see how that transpired, or this. And for me, it feels like January the 6th just carries a little bit more heavier. I don't know. Maybe it's heavy for 9/11 because you got 3,000 people that were killed in that situation, unfortunately. But I don't know. It's just when you think about those two attacks, it's mind blowing. And the craziest part about the January 6th piece is that it was done in-house. It was coordinated by a person who said that he is going to uphold the law, who sits in the seat of power by the former president. He was responsible for that. And it's just still hard to kind of wrap your minds around.
Yeah, I think if I may jump in, Farajii, I look back at some of the film, and I just remember watching this unfold live. I don't know if you guys were watching TV when this happened, and how shocking it was in the moment. I know sometimes when time passes, we tend to kind of, it lessens the blow. But this was, in fact, a coup. We talk about coups in terms of other countries around the world, but we never expected in the United States, our very own citizenry, led by allegedly our former president, to be involved in a coup to try to stop the transfer of power as it occurs on January 6th. And again, many of those who may have played whatever type of role in this coup are sitting in the United States Congress right now, voting on the Speaker of the House. So we are still grieving. I want to say that I'm glad President Biden is doing this, because we have to define what patriot means. So many of those who overran the Capitol, brutally attacking law enforcement, trying to bulldoze their way into Nancy Pelosi's office, calling for the hanging of Mike Pence, darn near got on that same U.S. House congressional floor as they were coming through with God knows what weaponry. We have to remember how sick it was and how distorted it was in terms of what is really patriotism. So I'm glad President Biden is taking a moment to say, here are the real patriots. and they will go down in history, and we will call their names, and they will become a part of the record. Thank goodness for the work of the January 6th committee, so that, again, this does not get lost or rewritten in history, and it is shown for what it was, which was a direct, a threat, a takeover, an attempt to stop the democratic transfer of power, something that we pride ourselves on, that keeps our country running, literally, was under attack. So I'm glad we're taking moments like these to salute all of the heroes, many of whom, as we said, are African American, so that history does not forget who the true patriots are.
Absolutely. Let me take a couple of comments from our online culture crew as folks are checking in. And folks, you can do the same. Make sure you jump in the chat. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook right now. Willie, you checked in and said, look, there were 2 officers that died sitting at the Capitol. One took their life. Always question that one. Why did he commit suicide? Was he guilty of helping, or was it the stress of the day? What I learned about that particular officer, and Sinead and Suzette, y'all can both correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the stress of the day. Like, he fell into some level of depression, and it just got too much for him, and he decided to take his life. Like, his mind never recovered from what happened on that day and what he saw his brothers in blue experience on that day. I remember watching this this Netflix documentary about the January 6th that came out sometime early last year, and when you saw the footage, like there was one scene where you saw one of the officers getting crushed in the turning door, the revolving doors. And I mean, they were literally like crushing him. Like, some of the Trump supporters were crushing him against his own, the other officers. And it was, I mean, you can hear the scream of pain. Like, this wasn't Hollywood. This was real life. This man was being crushed, and you can just hear it. And I mean, you can just hear and then take a look at these images, folks. Like, we're not hearing what was actually being chanted, what was actually being said. And to your point, Suzette, these folks were calling for the death of public officials.
Yeah.
That's why I say, going back to Eugene Goodman, that was God protected that man, because they were calling for people's heads, literally. So I think it was just the stress of the day. But Sinead, Suzette, did y'all hear anything different about that officer that killed himself?
No, I definitely, I too also believe it was the stress of the day. And I think in a moment like that, where psychological safety is out of the picture, folks need to be very aware that, we watched it from our TV screens. So it could feel Hollywood, it could feel desensitized, like many things that we watch. To actually have that image in your head and it replays over and over again, and you are also there in real time. There's some PTSD probably related to all of this. And I never want to speak on the dead, and especially one who was involved on that day in such a heroic way, but during such a horrific time. We don't even know what that gentleman was going through. And I just leave it there, because I could only imagine and couldn't imagine at the same time.
Absolutely. Suzette, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. When I think about how many who testified during the January 6th committee described the day as almost like medieval warfare. People were coming at you almost like you were across a battlefield. But again, you're shocked because these are your fellow Americans, right? You're a police officer and you have the Capitol protect, but you cannot believe it's your own fellow citizens who are coming at you with bear spray and using flagpoles and all kinds of things. And it literally was probably the trauma of what took place that day that took the mental toll. So I think about the family that continues to live with the loss, and all those that we don't really hear about, who maybe are not at the forefront, who also have been affected. It was a very traumatic day, guys. So I'm sure there was some of that impacted him as well.
Absolutely. Ming Lee, Natasha Surge. Ming, you checked in and said, let the Trump's charges stick so America can finally move on from this. The ball is dropping slowly on Trump. And 1 vote for Speaker, and now charges that should have been charged last year. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Suzette and Sinead, like we know that the GOP had just finished another round of votes for Kevin McCarthy. This is the 12th round that they completed. McCarthy hasn't been voted yet. But one of the votes actually came for Trump. Someone has actually voted for President Trump. And so because
Matt Gaetz of Florida, Matt Gaetz,
that's it. Your least favorite congressman out of Florida, the sex offender. But people there's been like a rumor saying that if Trump didn't run for president, that he should be voted for the House Speaker. And it's a rumor, but Matt Gaetz decided to see if he could kind of get the ball pushed. But I think at this point, the GOP is kind of moving on from Trump. I really feel like they see after this midterm election, they saw the damage that he done. I mean, then it's not a moment of clarity. They definitely haven't gotten an epiphany, but they have. I think they're moving away from Trump and his brand of conservative politics, because it's really, really hurting them. But it's interesting. It is interesting. To your point, Ming, you bringing that up. I think we're starting to see the breakdown of Trump. Suzanne, am I wrong in that?
I don't know. I think
you still think he's Teflon Don?
I think there are people who are reading the tea leaves a little bit differently than us. There are people that are looking at it on the right, saying that if we only had more true MAGA people, we would have won the midterms, instead of saying this is a rejection of that type of so-called policy platform. So
right.
You have some that are pushing in the direction of Trump, saying that, when you are more moderate, or when you do not have these type of very hardline, far right, almost radical politicos, on the tickets, on the ballots, that people are not going to show up, people are not going to be responsive. So I think there's a secondary interpretation that many on the far right, again, who are wielding power right now as we speak, in the vote for the Speaker of the House, saying to the centrist, and again, Kevin McCarthy is not even really a centrist. He is actually a hardline conservative, but because there's so many people to his right, it seems like he's more moderate. But yeah, they're saying to them, no, more of Trump would actually help our party become more energized and hopefully win in 2024. So I think there are those who disagree with that, but the loudest of the Republican Party right now seem to still be on his bandwagon, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Sinead Corinna checked in and said, look, I wish the president of the United States had the skill of tying it all together. Damn. She said this real-time civics lessons demonstrates the GOP's lack of capacity to govern effectively and is a magnifying glass to their agenda. What's your take on that, Sinead?
I'm trying to take it. I'm trying to take that. That was a. that was. Look, man.
It is from Corinna, so I'm not expecting nothing less. Corinna always got to drop something heavy.
Listen, I think we all have to be very, very careful. I think, as I've said before, I think the GOP is not done with Trump. No, they're done with Donald Trump, but they're not done with Trump-isms. I mean, look at the surrogates that he still has in there that are spewing the rhetoric. And what's scary is, Trump wasn't that smart, but the folks who he have, who are still in there are actually well educated.
Hey, let me ask you, because we're going to have to take a quick pause. But how can a person so smart be so dumb?
That's America.
So there's an island saying that it's better to be lucky than good sometimes. I'm just saying.
Okay. Okay.
I got some other thoughts, but this is a family.
No, we got to break. We got to
take a pause. But I always wonder that. How can you be so smart yet so dumb? You got all these degrees, you got law degrees, business degrees, and you follow a man who hasn't even really shown that he's qualified to be in a position. How can you be so smart yet so dumb? Look, we got to take a quick pause. Let me just do this. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about the Speaker of the House situation. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that you got a black a Republican who is being eyed for the position. Can we talk about that? And they're coming out the state of Florida. So I know Suzette is happy. We're going to have that conversation up next. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about what's going on with President Biden, how he has honored January 6 heroes. Now, we're shifting gears, wanted to have the conversation, another big conversation in Washington, which is who will be the Speaker of the GOP in the House? Who is going to be that person? As we know, there has been many, many rounds of voting for Kevin McCarthy, who has not yet secured the leadership post. Now, the word is they just adjourned until 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. So that's another round of voting where Kevin McCarthy has not been chosen. But there is another name that is coming up in the conversation as a possible alternative. And this is the name out of Florida. He's a congressman. And I had to talk about this guy, especially because I got Suzette on the panel. A black GOP representative by the name of this guy here. It's hard to talk about this guy. Byron Donalds.
There we go.
Byron Donalds.
Yes.
There he is, folks. I didn't even know this guy existed until I started seeing his name in these conversations. Byron Donalds, he is emerging as a GOP alternative to the House Speaker. Sinead can't even get himself together. It must be Friday. He can't even get himself together. Republicans are trying to figure out if this is the guy that they should go to as a potential Speaker of the House outside of Kevin McCarthy. Now, here's the word coming from U.S. News and World Report. During 3 rounds of balloting Wednesday, he received 20 votes to McCarthy's 201, enough to keep McCarthy short of the 218 needed to win the speakership in a full House. On Tuesday, Republicans opposing McCarthy nominated a slew of candidates, including Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona, Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, and even former Representative Lee Zeldin of New York. Donalds joined the insurgent Republicans on the final vote Tuesday, switching his vote from McCarthy to Jordan. So he's looking to put Jim Jordan into it. Here's the other part about this, folks. Let's go to quote number 2 from this. This is interesting. Representative Chip Roy of Texas was the sole member to vote for Byron Donalds for Speaker on Tuesday before subsequently supporting Jordan. In his Wednesday speech nominating Donalds, Representative Chip Roy said the sophomore represented a move towards something different, both for Washington and the Republican Party. Y'all check this out. Check out what Mr. Roy said. He said, here we are, and for the first time in history, there have been 2 Black Americans placed into the nomination for Speakers of the House, referring to the Donalds and Democratic House leader Hakeem Jeffries. He said this, y'all. This country needs a change. This country needs leadership that does not reflect this city, this town that is badly broken. Donalds is currently one of only 4 Black Republicans in the House.
We didn't mention Frederick Douglass, did they? Did they bring up Frederick Douglass? And Abraham Lincoln being Republican, did they bring that up? Did they? Because
okay, all right. I can't wait to hear from Sinead, but I needed to start this off with Suzette because she's down in Florida.
Good old Florida. You know you have to be in the
Byron Donalds, excuse me. Like now, based on the notes, based on what I've learned about this gentleman, Mr. Donalds, he's 44. He was elected to his second term in November.
Yeah.
He represents Florida's 19th district in the state's southwest region. He won a 9-way GOP primary and defeated his Democratic opponent to succeed, retiring Republican Representative Francis Rooney. He's actually from Brooklyn.
Yeah, born in Brooklyn.
Down
here, yep.
He came down there for school, right?
Yeah, went to FAMU, but graduated from FSU. Yeah, he's an interesting figure, and again, has never been in leadership. He has run in the U.S. House for leadership posts, was not elected there, so I'm not sure why all of a sudden the interest or the vote of confidence. Again, I love to see a brother rise through the ranks, but I do think this was an interesting nomination that tried to play up a racial component. That, you know, Hakeem Jeffries was the first Black person to be nominated as Speaker, African-American man, also out of New York and Brooklyn. And I think the Republicans have been kind of trying to utilize Mr. Donalds in a way that is probably not beneficial, or is not as beneficial as they think. In terms of optics, they are hoping that it plays up, I guess, in the court of public opinion to the American people that, oh, they have Black people too. There happen to be 4 members of the U.S. House that are Black and Republican. But again, in terms of his experience, I'm not sure if he has the chops. Are they doing this futilely to just try to prevent Mr. McCarthy from getting to the speakership, or do they really believe in Mr. Donalds? And I think it might be the former. I looked at his resume. We have to remember, Farajii, these people that we're calling the House Freedom Caucus were prior known as the Tea Party. So we have kind of lost that branding. It sounds a lot better, a little bit more patriotic again. But Mr. Donalds came to prominence during the Tea Party movement. He was first in the Florida State House of Representatives before being elected to Congress. So we have to understand his roots. Again, I'm applauding any Black person that is, you know, pushing towards, you know, the halls of leadership. But again, what are his policies, and do we really want that? So again, this is not a bait and switch. I'm sorry. He is being kind of bandied about, I think, for the wrong reasons.
So he's a prop.
He's a face.
He's a face.
Yes.
He's a face.
Yes.
All right. So let's go to my man Sinead, because Sinead on the other element of this conversation. And I appreciate you, Suzette, for kind of giving us that on the ground analysis of who he is. But Chip Roy said that there needs to be a change. So, because I think a lot of times the conversation has been that white GOP members don't realize, you know, they kind of want to stay in their whiteness. But Chip Roy saying, look, things are changing. This country is changing. The attitudes toward Black folks, Black men are changing. So we need to kind of go with this wave, ride this wave. In the space of when you're talking about diversity and equity and inclusion, I mean, this type of putting someone out there like that, this could be like a double-edged sword, I'm thinking, Sinead. You know what I mean? Especially for Black folks that are seeking to change, right? I mean, we're not all happy with the Democratic Party. Now you got this young Black man coming from Florida. He went to FAMU, which is HBCU. And now he's a Black Republican. I mean, bro, this I'm not saying he's going to get Speaker of the House, but if he keeps on this trajectory, I think he could bring some folks over. Am I kind of going too far down the line, Sinead?
You are categorically incorrect. Let me tell you. I feel like white people, if they could, they would repackage kente cloth and sell it to us. Let me tell you something. We've seen this before. Do y'all remember when a young Black Democratic senator was running for president, and all of a sudden a Black Herman Cain was as well? This is an old Republican playbook thing. Look, we have one too. That's all that it is. I don't think this gentleman, and I'm not saying that a Black person in the Republican Party couldn't do well. I just don't think he's that guy. I think it's a mistake that they are utilizing him, because I think they're only utilizing him as a blackface and a prop, and clearly he doesn't see it. Probably joining his colleague. What's the gentleman's name from South Carolina? I can't even think of his name.
Tim Scott?
I think, yes.
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott, yes. Just in the sunken place. What I think is going on right now is a deep manipulation of our senses, because this is not diversity, equity, or inclusion. This is just placating. You're putting a face there, because if not, you're bringing him up on the 9th hour. You're not talking about him any other time. But all of a sudden, if there's another Black man up there, so it's like, yes, let's show our Blacks too. We're down. We're down with,
He said, let's show our Black.
Because that's exactly what it's eliciting. And
I have Blacks over here, guys. We have Blacks.
We have Blacks too. And I would like to think the best for the GOP. I would, but it's just the way that this is done. It's very disingenuous.
Well, I mean, obviously, but here's the thing. This is always what I thought is interesting about figures like Tim Scott or now Byron Donalds and any other, Herman Cain. It's like they don't care that they're being kind of paraded out to the front, you know what I mean? Or they're being used. And it's like, how do you go to sleep at night? How do you reconcile that in your mind? And I'm wondering, Suzette, in the 19th district down in Southwest Florida, are there Black people that are like, hey, yo, bro, what's going on? What's up with all of that? Are there Black folks that are checking him and say, bro, I thought, like, is that happening?
Well, there definitely are, where he is, for Myers, Naples, Estero, pretty much the southwestern part of Florida where Hurricane Ian came through. However, it's a heavily retiree population as well in Naples and the surrounding areas. So he is going to be, I think, looking to what his constituency and constituents feel when he's making these type of moves. Sometimes, again, your fundraising goes up when you are being nominated for this, position, when no one across the country knew your name before, 2 days ago. All of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, he's interesting. So this comes with some perks on, I think, an individual level when it comes to his own district. And I do think sometimes the Republicans, we forget how disciplined they are when it comes to playing team ball. Even though it might be an affront, they look at it as far as the, across the board and the long view. This will benefit our end goal, right? The team goal. So if he feels like he was kind of, buttering up to the radical right, and that will help him in his district, then okay, he's going to, get his 5 minutes of fame, and it might help him with fundraising and maybe with reelection. But I'm not sure if it was something that he perhaps saw as realistic or that he maybe even wanted. But I think there are times where, unfortunately, you're put in a position because of your party to, stand up and be utilized in this way, whether you like to or not.
Right. And, I love my culture crew, my online culture crew. They giving me the scoop because I can't watch it all the time. So Corinna and others, Damon, Ming, everybody's saying that man was damn near crying. He was crying.
It's a tough position to be in. People are telling you go, and you don't want to.
I mean, I think, Corinna, you said that he voted for Kevin McCarthy today. Man, he flip-flopping like a pair of sandals in the sand, baby. Like he is.
Well, they converted him. It's a 13th vote. We are now seeing the end of the 13th vote for Speaker of the House. Again, hasn't been seen in over 100 years, especially this many rounds. Actually, it dates back to more like the Civil War era, when it took this many times to come to a consensus. When you are running stuff, I just want people to realize how much of a harbinger this is to what it's going to be like for the next 2 years, where the GOP is being held hostage by a far-right small contingent, only about 20 members in a House of 435, so that they're getting rule changes, all kinds of concessions up front that allows them more power to me than what the Speaker will have if Mr. McCarthy is ever elected. So we got to be very careful. We have the debt ceiling coming up. That's the budget for the country, and it has to be increased by the House. And if they can hold the Speaker vote hostage for how many days and how many votes, what's going to happen when real legislation has to come forward and it's time to govern? This, I think, is a really dark omen for what it's going to be like under Republican control for the next couple of years.
Oh my gosh, Suzette, your words may come back to haunt us, folks. We got to take our final pause. When we come forward, let's talk about. We're going to stay in the state of Florida. How Governor Ron DeSantis is targeting officials and staff members and even educators who are teaching CRT. Yeah, he said this at his inauguration. He's going for it all, y'all. And so we're going to share with you what the latest is from Florida. Stay with us. That last conversation is up next here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, for our final conversation for the first hour of today's show, let's stay in the state of Florida as Governor Ron DeSantis is now taking aim at educators and staff in schools that promote CRT. Here's the latest from Florida, folks. Take a look at this. He wants colleges around the state to produce a detailed list of all personnel, programs, campus activities, and funds associated with critical race theory and diversity initiatives. According to Mr. DeSantis, he said, we must ensure that our institutions of higher learning are focused on academic excellence and the pursuit of truth, not the imposition of trendy ideology. He said this at his second inauguration that happened earlier this week. Now, according to a December 28, 2022 memo written by the governor's budget director, Chris Spencer, and forwarded to the Chancellor Ray Rodriguez of the State University System of Florida and Education Committee, Manny Diaz, he says the governor's office needs the information for budget planning. It also references, take a look, it also references the governor's controversial Stop Woke Act. Universities that disobey the law's prohibition against teaching that someone is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive because of their gender or ethnicity, whether knowingly or unintentionally, risk losing state support. Let's bring back Sinead. Let's bring back Suzette. Sinead, what is this? So the governor gets inaugurated, and then at his inauguration say, hey, everybody, hey, he clicks the glass. Hey, everybody, ding, 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 ding. I just got an announcement. Anybody that's teaching about the truth about white people and the history of this country, I'm coming for your ass. Hey, y'all can go back to dinner now. Thank you for voting for me.
Farajii, can I provide a little bit of context here?
No, we don't need no context.
I just have to, because what is very interesting is about how the Florida legislature and our Constitution works here, right? So the only thing that's required of the Florida House and the Florida Senate is that they pass a budget every year. And one of the most powerful tools that a governor has and that Ron DeSantis has is what is called the line item veto, which is once this budget is passed, it goes to the governor's desk and he and his staff comb through that budget line by line. So what he has done here is done an all call. Let me find out about all these programs that we are funding with state dollars. And if it comes up in the budget this coming spring, I'll be able to identify them rather quickly and strike through each of those programs that I think should not be included in this budget. So this is a very dangerous mechanism he's using on top of what he already has with the power that the state has enforced with the Stop Woke Act.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm glad that you used that term dangerous, because this is political retribution at its best, right? Where we're seeing a high-powered, a very powerful state leader deciding to use his bully pulpit to go against something that he personally thinks is wrong. Not that's quote unquote may not be in the best interest of the people, but he personally has an issue with. And Sinedu, I want you to give us some context. If the governor is moving unilaterally in this direction, what does the conversation around diversity and equity and inclusion look like, especially in these institutions that are already being scrutinized because of either their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade or their hiring practices or their enrollment practices? This puts those institutions, those personnel, those programs in a very, very tight spot.
I think our president needs to get the South under control, because they're showing very much secessionist vibes yet again. It's very, again, like I said, I was just at the Whitley plantation here in Louisiana. It's very scary on what I'm seeing, because when you're denying the history of something existing, especially in this day, we live in the day of algorithms and Google, where what shows up first is the truth. And when we try to diminish facts and information of what has happened, not only does it take away from your diversity, it leaves room for inclusion, where now inclusion becomes an option rather than something that is needed. I think what Ron DeSantis is doing, and he's not alone, is very dangerous, because if at all he is successful, Greg Abbott, the Kemp will all be behind them in their states doing the same thing.
And that's crazy.
And I think there should not be, the issue that I have with what he is doing and what the Republicans are doing is that they're weaponizing a good thing, like the word book or whatever. CRT is literally just talking about history. Do y'all want us to say it in another way? We're just talking about history, more or less, history in which your ancestors propagated. Now, if you have an issue with what has taken place and what is said in the history, then you go to your altar and you repent to whoever you believe in on what your people have done. But what he is doing is, I think it's actually illegal. I don't even know if the Department of Education, if they will allow him to go forward and do some of these things that he is doing with these institutions. And Suzette may be able to give us
I can jump in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please.
But I think this is illegal. And I think that is the point.
Yeah.
We are in a space where Republicans are skirting the law, and it's just passed off as if it's nothing. First, it's with the January 6th, and then it's with saying that this is fake news. And this, I think this isn't funny anymore. This is actually getting very scary, because what happens to our HBCUs or our HSI?
That's a Sinedu, and I'm Willie Frazier, my guy Willie. You said the same thing, that the governor is looking to defund HBCUs. Suzette, if he opens the door with PWIs, liberal PWIs, let me just be very clear. If he opens that door, if he's going after these liberal, colleges and educational institutions that teach him this, then HBCUs, and Florida has a number of HBCUs. We might be seeing some HBCUs possibly being shut down as a result of this. Am I jumping too far ahead?
No, you're not. No, you're not. There are so many parts of this that are moving, again, since just 2021, spring of 2021, when Ron DeSantis went ahead and signed this legislation. Remember, woke is an acronym. It says wrong to our kids and employees. So within the language of this law, it prevents, I'm just going to read it so people have a clear understanding, inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, thoughts about race, gender, or national origin, or that a person prevents you from teaching that a person bears personal responsibility for or must feel guilt or anguish or any other form of psychological distress over actions committed in the past by members of the same race, gender, and national origin. So when we think about this, we just had November of 2022, an injunction by the Northern District of Florida. The chief judge up there, Mr. Mark Walker, just entered an injunction, a temporary stay against the Stop Woke Act, right? So right now it's being appealed by Governor DeSantis and his folks. But in the meantime, he's using this mechanism, the line item veto, the funding, cut off the funding, as a way of still implementing that same agenda. And if we've already had such a cooling effect across, I'm talking about from elementary schools to middle schools. I was just researching about what is happening on college campuses at UCF alone. Right after this was passed last July, they removed all mention of anything anti-racist that was put into mission statements of departments that were added in 2020 after the George Floyd uprising. Now it's being tied to tenure, in tenure contracts, not being in any type of default of this type of a law for you to even get tenure. There are classes at UCF, University of Central Florida, that were canceled this fall that have to do with race and gender because professors were afraid to teach them. I had just heard about this morning, a lawsuit that was being filed in Palm Beach by a father who says his teacher of his, I think it was an elementary school child, had an LGBTQ flag, a pride flag in the classroom, and how that infringed upon his religious right and also the law according to the Stop Woke Act. So Ron DeSantis has made it very clear what his end game is, and he's used the Florida legislature that is predominantly Republican skillfully, but hopefully we can get some reprieve vis-a-vis this injunction that was filed back in November. Again, it will be appealed, but again, it's very interesting. Read the Time magazine article about this injunction. So hopefully we'll see what the appellate court says about the maybe illegality of Stop Woke in terms of the First Amendment it infringes upon, the 14th Amendment it infringes upon when it comes to your freedom to deliver educational references that are accurate and true. So we'll see how it becomes, contested in the future. But it's a very serious problem here, and it's serving as a blueprint for others.
Think you on mute, brother.
Okay, there we go. We got a few moments left with this. I'm wondering, what's the likelihood, Suzette, and Deshanedo, I want to get your take on this. Suzette, what's the likelihood that you think that the governor is going to follow any type of ruling coming from the determination of this injunction?
Well, they're already appealing it. And again, that's why they're trying to use the power of the purse instead. Yeah. So instead of going through this laws mechanism, it's now saying, guess what? I approve the budget of the state of Florida, and any program that I think is not worthy, he has the line item veto. He could just cross it off and it's no longer funded. So this is a very, very powerful and, again, dangerous mechanism that he's saying, guess what? We're going to follow the law. If you guys told me, okay, pause, there's a temporary stay, we're going to appeal it. But in the meantime, here's what I'm going to do to make sure I also kind of cut this type of education out or programs out completely from the state budget.
Sinead, this is like you mentioned, this is dangerous. This is going down a very, very slippery slope. What reprieve do Black folks and marginalized communities in the state of Florida have at this point? We got Sinead.
I think you're also muted, brother.
You're muted as well, brother.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I hate to say this. We don't have much reprieve. This is not new to us. We know what it's like to be silenced, unfortunately. But just like our ancestors, none of this should stop anything that we do. None of this should stop our zeal to educate ourselves and to make sure that we are educating one another. I think this is the time for those trusted, and I'm saying trusted, historically trusted Black enclaves to step up. This is the perfect time for the church to step up, right? Because where we are right now is very dangerous. It's the seizing of information, the absolute abdication of reality, of truth, and using federal dollars or state dollars to make sense of that. And that's not new. We've seen that before through many governmental policies. I think this is time, if any time in the future, any time in the past hasn't been a moment, this is the moment for Black folks to get your information, get your knowledge, and make sure that you are giving it to your fellow man, your fellow woman, and more importantly, teach your kids. Let's stop saying they're too young. It's time for us to tell our kids, because that is part of the problem where a lot of our young folks aren't getting this information from their families, because it's like, oh yeah, they're too young to understand. We are under attack.
Yeah, it is.
Truth is under attack. History is under attack.
Absolutely.
And if we are not arming ourselves with knowledge, we will fall foe to this prey.
Absolutely. Very quickly, I want to get a couple of comments in. Karen, you checked in. Karen, my sister, you said this is a hateful, hurtful, and harmful. Denying the truth about the history of racism doesn't change the fact that it happened, and will encourage a new generation of racists with false ideology. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then Shalinda, you said, and thank you, Karen. Shalinda, you checked in and said, look, this is not only dangerous, we are living in perilous times. Scary. We must protect our own in the state of Florida. Absolutely. So we will certainly keep our eyes on this situation. But Ron DeSantis has already started off his second term on a very, very dangerous path. And folks, if you're down in Florida, that means you got to get involved. You can't just wait until election time. You got to get involved right now. I want to thank our two dynamic culture crew members, Suzette Speaks and Sinead Wakofor. Suzette, y'all make sure y'all check her out on her show that streams on YouTube. She puts out great content, and I just love and appreciate what she brings here to the culture. So Suzette, thank you again for taking time out on a Friday to be with us this afternoon to talk about these issues. And my brother Sinead, thank you so much, bro. I always appreciate your insight and what you bring, man. Y'all two are dynamic, man. I might have to pay y'all up more often.
Listen, I love being on with
y'all up more often, man.
I do too. This is enjoyable. Thank you both very much. Great discussion.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Make sure that y'all continue to show support for the work we're doing here at Black Star Network. Y'all can go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and do the great work there. Make sure you also follow us on our social media at Black Star Network on IG and on Twitter as well. And follow me, Farajii Muhammad. You can find me at The Real Farajii on IG, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Farajii. Stay tuned for the second hour of the show. We got some best of conversations that you may not have seen over this past year, conversations that you missed, but conversations that are powerful without a shadow of doubt. So stay tuned for that. I appreciate you for tuning in this Friday, and God willing, we'll have a full show on Monday next week. So thank you so much for tuning in for the first hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network
All right, folks, our final conversation continues in the same vein of health and wellness. And while we can talk about healthcare coverage, there are still some things that you can do, you and I can do, to make sure that we are still living our best, holistic, healthy lives. And so my next guest, Robert Brace, who is an expert, who is a fitness expert, to talk to us a little bit about how do we start to make better choices and make different decisions about our health. Now, we all know as adults and those who are tuning in, you have children, we all understand the importance of it. But the biggest challenge that I think that for a lot of people, including myself, is staying committed to the promise that you want to live a healthy, holistic life. And so Robert here is going to give us some insight about how to do so. So Robert, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. How are you this afternoon, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good to be here with you.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir. All right. So Robert, let's talk a little bit about, you just heard a little bit of that conversation about health insurance, right?
Yes.
So how does and I'm just want to get your brief answer on this. How does that fit with the whole conversation about health and wellness? I mean, people tend to believe and there are various schools of thoughts. I'm sure you are familiar with them. That some people say, well, look, as long as I keep my body healthy, I'm good. I don't necessarily need coverage, right?
Right.
Then there's another group of folks that is like, well, as long as I got coverage, I don't need to do really much to my body.
Yes. I've heard both.
And then you got people like yourself with I'm gonna get the coverage and I'm gonna work on my body.
That's right. So you need the bottom line. You got it absolutely right, man. You need to be doing both,
Right.
And,
so there's some disparities because health and wellness, and when we talk about health and wellness, holistic living, a lot of people got a lot of different things. People are getting news and their knowledge about these things from a number of different sources.
Right.
And so at this point, it's like, who do you listen to? Where do you go to? How do we start the process to be in a better space about this?
Right. I mean, this is a great question, especially for our people, right? And just a little bit about me. Yes, I am a fitness expert. I have a boutique gym in downtown Manhattan where most of our clientele are high-powered Black women. And I was a full-time minister in Harlem for 6 years. Me and my wife built a church there in Harlem. So I say all that to say that, look, health affects everybody, but there are very specific ways in which it affects our culture. And so when you talk about, some people think saying, look, if I'm insured, then I don't need to worry about my health, or if I'm healthy, I don't need to worry about being insured. Those are very real things for us. And especially over the past couple of years, with the pandemic, with the stress of witnessing racial injustice, the stress and the health impact on our community has been a lot higher. And so I think for us, we've got to understand, look, the first stop for health insurance is really, like you said, ensuring that our health is where it needs to be. And in terms of thinking about that, and I know you were alluding to the new year as well.
Yeah,
we've got to start. Everybody has to start by thinking about what does wellness mean for them. And what I mean by that is, what does it mean for you to be well? Not just physically. We know the physical part, and the physical part I can get to, but there's mental stress that we face day to day, whether that's stress from your job, your relationships, stress just from watching the political and social scene that is happening right now. How are we dealing with that? How are we having conversations about that? And so, we take a mind, body, and soul approach. So that would be mind, right? What are you thinking about? What are you letting into your mind? What conversations are you having? How are you being affected by the news? And how are you processing that? And then the physical body, but also the soul. And when I talk about soul, obviously there's the spiritual, ethereal soul, but I'm talking about soul level qualities. Like, do you have love in your life? Do you have peace in your life? Do you have a sense of purpose in your life? And having those as well, there is science that has proven that if you have a purpose, if you have a community around you, if you have a sense of peace, that can stave off many different illnesses and even medical conditions. So you've got to have a balance of all three.
So yes, and you are known as the mind, body, soul connector.
Correct.
Right, because part of the challenge has been, and I think this is something that, and based upon your work, and take a look at some of the video that we got of Brother Robert and his team. But part of that is we have often like disconnected those three parts of ourselves to three different things, and it's just been recently has the connection or connecting the dots between. You can have a great body, but you could be soulfully deficient. And I'm just trying to say that, you know what I'm saying? Or you can have the love, you can have the peace, but it doesn't translate to the peace of your body or being at one with your body, or that your mind. Like there's so many different connections, and so talk to us a little bit about that, because that's a new space for a fitness expert to take, a different approach for a fitness expert like yourself to take.
Right. Well, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. The easiest way that I describe it to people so people make an immediate connection is have you ever been hangry, right? So when you
said hangry?
Hangry, Hangry, right?
All the time.
You experience you experience anger based upon you not having something to eat, right? And so many times we're trying to think the mental is different from the physical, but the fact that you not having food, something physical, is causing a mental reaction, you're angry, shows you that there's a mind-body connection, right? There's a reason why soul food is called soul food, because it's not just about the taste in your mouth. It's about what it does to you internally, the memories you have, the connections you have. If you want to go even deeper, you look at our history with food, right? So when it comes to the mind, body, and soul connection, we've got to understand, and again, going back, another easy way to describe it is going back to stress. If you are stressed, and when we talk about stress is any unresolved negative emotion, right? So if you have an issue in your marriage that's not resolved, that's stress. If you have a financial issue that is unresolved, you're thinking about it day to day. Might not be the biggest thing, but it's in the back of your mind, running. That's stress, right? If on your job, there's that boss or there's that coworker who's always, nagging you, all of that's called chronic stress. It's the day-to-day stress that is in your life, right?
And Brother Robert, how do you carry that? I want us to kind of emphasize that, right? Because many of us may wake up feeling anxious, nervous. Many of us may wake up feeling angry. Many of us may wake up feeling tired.
Right.
We wake up feeling fatigued, right? So are these signs of that chronic stress?
I think your question is excellent, because it's right along the lines of how I make that connection, right? Because those things we've talked about are chronic stress. Now, how does that affect us in our bodies? Because sometimes we can think, suck it up, move on. This is life. Life is tough.
Come on, man.
Right?
We black people, man.
Right,
Come
exactly.
On,
we've been through tougher things than this, right? So what am I crying for?
Right.
Here's the thing. When you're stressed, right, the body takes away blood from your gut, because you're in the fight or flight response, right? So when you're stressed, back in the day, if you had to run away, and our ancestors had to run away from a bear or something like that in the woods, the body would flush your blood with sugar and energy so you could fight or you could run, right? Now, when the danger is gone, your body comes back to normal. But now we're not running away from lions or bears. The body responds the same way when we are stressed about our relationships, our finances, or whatever. So to your question, what happens then is the body will increase cortisol, right? Cortisol is part of the stress response, releases more sugar into your blood, except you don't have to use that sugar because you're not fighting or running away. That sugar stays inside your body. It can cause inflammation. It can cause early onset Alzheimer's. It can cause heart disease, right? That's just from stress. When we're stressed, the body takes blood away from the stomach and puts it in your extremities because you're supposed to fight or run away. So it's taking blood from your internal organs and putting it into your muscles. That's when we start to get stomach issues, irritable bowel, because there's less blood going to our digestive system, right? When the body's brilliant because it's like, again, trying to give you the energy to fight or flight, right? So fight or flight means you probably shouldn't be sleeping right now if you have to fight a lion or a bear. So your sleep patterns get affected. Your reproductive health gets affected. And so we may think, let's just suck it up and move on. But in doing so and not addressing the stress, we've already talked about reproductive system. We've talked about your stomach. We've talked about inflammation, putting on weight, Alzheimer's. This is how your mind and what you're going through affects your body. Now, the good thing is, when it comes to movement and exercise, right? And I want us to get out of, because sometimes, you know, someone like me comes on and starts talking about exercise. And if some people have seen some of our results and what we do, they're like, oh, that looks way too intense. Yes, there is that part of exercise, but I'm talking about moving so that you sweat, so that you stretch a little bit, so that your heart rate is raised. As soon as you start to do that, the body releases serotonin, right? So the body's feel-good hormone. You start to feel better. If you had a workout and you walk out of the gym just feeling a little bit with a little bit more energy, that's the serotonin working, right? So that's a little sense of joy. You move, it increases the prioritizing function of the brain. So if you eat too much, work too much, it helps you make better decisions and handle any kind of extreme behavior. If you work out, you got to be at a place where you push for about 20 minutes. So you're pushing yourself, right, for about 20 minutes. The body releases, and this is the one I love, a hormone called endocannabinoids. Now, the root ingredient of endocannabinoids, which your body naturally produces, is the same root ingredient as in cannabis. So it's called the bliss hormone. So if you've ever worked out, and some people get a runner's high, or you dance a lot and you get that feeling of elation, the body gives you that. So we've talked about moving that gives you peace, moving that gives you bliss, moving that gives you mental focus. Those are spiritual soul level qualities. So that's how we make that connection, that the more you move, the more oxytocin is released, which is going to make you feel more love and bonding, right? Serotonin is going to make you feel happier and take the edge off of any stress, right? It's going to release reduce adrenaline. You got endocannabinoids. It's going to make you feel bliss. This is how you connect physical activity to what's going on a spiritual level. So I'm hoping that's making the connection for people there.
It's making a lot of sense, Brother Robert, a lot of sense. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with mind, body, and soul connector Robert Brace. And I'm also going to get your questions and comments as part of the discussion. Folks, we're talking about how to live your best life holistically, and you have to focus on your mind, your body, and your soul. We're doing that with Robert Brace and you. So stay with us. More of this conversation up next right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
All right, folks, we've been having a conversation here about how to live your best life holistically, and we've been talking to mind, body, soul, connector, and fitness expert Mr. Robert Brace. Brother Robert, again, thank you so much for your time. You dropping some jewels, brother. You're dropping some jewels and making the connect. I'm serious, because as I'm listening to you, I'm like, damn, man, like, so much is on our minds nowadays, right? And so this type of understanding, it empowers you. Like, first you become very critical of yourself, like, damn, I should be doing more for myself. I should be doing more for my health. But then once you get past that, you start to feel empowered. Like, at least I have the information, the knowledge, starting with some starting knowledge. Right. So let's just focus on that for the final few moments where we're together, Brother Robert. What would you recommend for people to start living a little bit better, especially we're coming around the holiday season, and this can be, depending on your experience, the holidays can be full of joy or can be full of anxiety and pain. Yeah. So how do we start to implement some of these ideas?
Okay, I think because we've got a little bit of time, I want to give your audience the best possible nugget that they can take away. Please, especially brother. Because you just hit on something that happens a lot. We hear this information and we can kind of, like you said, get down on ourselves, critical. I should have been doing this. Why haven't I done it up until now? And look, partly my industry, the fitness industry, has done that, right? Has made people get into fitness because of what they don't like about themselves rather than what they love about themselves, right? You know what I mean? Okay. And you think about it, you look, you got to fix, improve, reshape, right? All of these things, right? Anti-wrinkle, anti-cellulite, anti-aging, basically anti-you, right? But what we've got to do is connect. Look, we've got to connect with the fact that we were made from divine love to be divinely loved and to give divine love, right? And every single person here, if every single person connects with the reason why, if you connect with your own reason why, then it's going to make the action much easier, right? Don't take somebody else's reason why. Don't take the fitness's reason why with the images on magazines that look nothing like you, right? You got to figure out your own reason. And this is what I mean. In every single one of your viewers right now, there is a sense of goodness. They have been somewhere, done something, helped somebody, right? And there are people who are grateful for them just because of who they are. Every one of your listeners, there is a sense of greatness, whether it's they have this talent, this gift that they do better than anyone else, that they give back to their community. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. It could be just that you are that person that everybody talks to. You are the person who always brings the food when somebody needs it, right? You have a gift, right? So you have a goodness in your nature, a giving spirit in your nature. And sometimes we sacrifice, we go over and above to give to others. So that's a giving spirit, a good spirit, a great spirit, and a giving spirit. The world needs to see more of that from all of our listeners. And that is why we take care of the temple that houses our spirit, so that more of that goodness, more of that greatness, and more of that giving spirit can be manifest. Because you can't do it if your body is not healthy. And your body is the vehicle through which you are going to make your biggest contribution in the world, and through which you are going to accomplish your purpose. And so, you've heard the phrase, the body is a temple, right? Right. When you think about a temple, when the ancients built a temple, they built it, and whatever religious background you're from, they built the temple to express the greatness of the divinity that lived inside it, right? Right. Even though they knew that they could never quite match the divinity that lived inside it. Every single person has a divinity. That word in the Hebrew is kavod. We all have a kavod, a weight of our worth, right? A weight of who we are as a human being, right? And so our job is to take care of the temple that houses that spirit, right? And lives up to the power, the depth, the greatness within each and every single one of us. Now, if each of us built our personal temple to match the greatness of the spirit that's within it, how great would our communities be? Come on, brother. How healthy would our communities be? Would we need a New Year's resolution? No, we wouldn't, because we would already know within our spirit, it's worth getting the extra rest, eating a healthy meal, going for a walk, taking a workout, because we're not working out to meet some image in some magazine that's been photoshopped by somebody who doesn't look like us. We're moving to match the divinity of the spirit within us. And that is how you have a personal revolution and a cultural revolution within our communities.
Hey, Brother Robert,
yep.
That's a whole different motivation, brother.
That's it.
That's a whole different motivation. It's not to be, some people get motivated because of social media. Some people get motivated because they want to attract the opposite sex, right? Some people get motivated for personal reasons, but it is a whole different motivation when you say, how do I match my physical body to the divine spirit that's within me? Correct. How do I reflect that? If this body is my temple, which it is, and I look at fitness as the pathway to bring me into a level of consistency, a personal consistency with the spirit that I have. So my love for the creator, my love for the prophets and messengers, my love for the word, my love for the spirit.
All of that
needs to match the temple that all of that is housed. Come on, brother. Come on, man. You're taking me to church and to the gym at the same time, Brad.
That's what this is about.
You know what I'm saying? We can't. I don't know how to process this information, Brother Robin. I don't know if you're my pastor, you're my fitness.
But it's all in one, right? That's what I'm saying. It's all one. The body is a divinely created being. Again, it doesn't matter what faith tradition you are from, right? It's divinely created. And so, and our spirit lives within that. And listen, man, if you want to take it onto another level.
Come on, we got a few moments left.
If you
Go ahead.
think about how much Black people have had to overcome just to be here today, just to be positive, just to get up and have a positive, faithful attitude. You think about the power of that spirit and where we are today as a people and where we're going. And if you think about how big, powerful, resilient, loving that spirit is, and then you decide to match health and physicality to that, how powerful could we be? Stress is killing us because we're not taught or we don't see how to make this connection. Many of us know people in our family who have diabetes, who have heart issues, who have arthritis, right? Who have stress. But because of the way our community has in a lot of ways been forced to handle stress, we don't deal with it, right? Think about if we matched our physical and our efforts to be healthy to the power and the greatness of the Black spirit en masse. We would be unstoppable and we would take care of our health. And the end result of that is, you might get a slimmer waist and some six-pack abs, right? But that's the end result. You know what I'm saying? So
nothing wrong with edifying your spirit and getting a nice little six-pack in the mix.
You know what I'm saying? So you can get it all.
Hey, look, Brother Robert, we our time has been well spent, and I want to give people a chance to connect with you.
Okay.
On social media, website. So talk to us about the work that you're doing, how they can find you, dear brother.
Okay, so the most simple way is on Instagram at Robert Brace. That's my name, at Robert Brace, BRACE. But you can get free resources right away, right? At thebracelife.com, thebracelife.com. You can get free resources there. And I want to give this away now. My team just put it together. And if you enter your email here, you can get a whole mind, body, soul. It's like 60 pages, mind, body, soul workbook, right? Yeah, you put your information in there and you get 14 days free. And it's workouts, meditation, it's mindful stuff. But the other one is thebracelife.com, and then you put spirit-led-body, spirit-led-body after thebracelife.com, and you will get, just put your information in there, and my team will send you, this workbook that talks about the physical, it talks about finding your eating relationship, talks about how to change, how to create a new physical wellness identity for you. There's a whole bunch of good stuff. So that's the biggest gift I can give you.
There it is, the biggest gift right there. All right, Brother Robert, I want to say I would love to bring you back on, dear brother. I need to bring you back on as we continue these conversations. There it is, folks, the Brace Life Spirit-Led Body Unlock the biblical secrets to a dramatic mind, body, and soul transformation in 28 days, folks. That means technically, by the time the new year comes around, if you work hard enough, you might be able to get it in. Start your new years in a very, very different, holistically healthy space. So definitely check out my brother's The Brace Life. You can find all of his information online. Definitely check him out on social media. And Brother Robert, I just got to say, I got to bring you back on, man. I got to bring you back on, brother.
Anytime you let me know, I'm there.
I truly appreciate you, man, and continue to do the great work. And I know that the God has blessed you in a lot of different ways, but most importantly, thank you for giving your insight and helping us to connect the dots between mind, body, and soul, brother, because that's exactly what we need in this day and time. So I thank you for the great work and being so good for the culture, bro.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you do. Appreciate it.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Wanted to switch gears to talk about something that has been trending, which is what is the state of the woman here in this country. This past Friday, a group of organizations that are dedicated to the issue of abortion and reproductive rights and other issues that affect women all over this country decided to make moves to call for a day without us. Take a look at this, folks, because this is something that was highlighted in the root. Can you imagine a day without the work of Black women? No, I cannot. The Day Without Us campaign wants us to try. I don't want to try. I do not want to try imagining a day without my sisters. And so we wanted to talk a little bit more about this campaign because it's so important that we look at these things, not just from a political space, but really understand the value and the importance of the woman's work, the woman's speech, and the woman's presence as relates to the issue. So we're joined by Dr. Avis. Dr. Avis, who you've seen, guys, on Roland Martin Unfiltered. This sister is a phenomenal sister, and she's been talking about a number of issues. She's one of our political analysts here on Black Star Network. She is an author. She is a professor. So she's a scholar in a lot of different spaces. We got Dr. Avis joining us today. Let's see. Dr. Avis, how are you this afternoon?
I am great. How are you? Great to be on your show.
Thank you so much for taking time out your busy schedule to be with us, Doc. We truly appreciate it. Absolutely. Now, Dr. Avis, I'm going to go back to this question that the root posed, and I think that, which is why we wanted to have you on here, because it was talking about this idea, this campaign of a day without us, really looking at abortion rights, reproductive rights of women, and women saying enough is enough. First and foremost, what do you make of where we are with women, with the woman, the state of the woman here in America, particularly Black women?
Yeah.
It seems like there are so many different things happening with sisters today. And as a man, I always try to just make sure that I'm on the right side of history, Doc.
We appreciate that.
So that's why I'm always open up the space to hearing from dynamic sisters like yourself and others. But what do you see as being the state of the woman in this country, particularly for Black women?
We're in a very precarious space right now. I see us going backwards. This is a moment in which, for centuries, we fought every step of the way as women, and particularly as Black women, to get to where we are in this very race, gendered, very discriminatory society that we know we have to navigate each and every day. And the sad situation is, despite all that work, despite all the bloodshed, despite all the blood, sweat, and tears that have been put into getting us where we are today, what we are finding is that we're going backwards. We have a Supreme Court that has just run renegade over our rights. Yes, they've dismantled Roe, but if you believe that that's where they're going to stop, let me just say, you need to have another thing coming. That's just the beginning, I believe, of them trampling over our rights as a people, in terms of Black people, and specifically as women as well. And so this is a moment in which we have to fight. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. We have to fight in order to not only protect what rights remain, but also to get back what's been lost.
I'm right there with you. We bringing back Jules P., hip hop artist and advocate, in this part of this conversation. And Doc, I mean, that is not a good place for us to be, considering that there have been a number of efforts by Black women organizations. Of course, we talk about Black Lives Matter, which is ran and led by Black women. Mm-hmm. So why aren't we seeing the type of improvements, even though we're seeing a lot more efforts at this point? We cannot overstate the damage that the Trump administration had on this nation as a whole, but also specifically on our rights and our safety, quite frankly, in this country, as Black people and Black women. And so what we're fighting against right now are the trickle-down effects of his very damaging actions, both in terms of his judicial appointments, but also in terms of the tone and tenor of the country that he ushered in, where white racist violence has not only been, well, I would say it's been embraced, it's been encouraged, it's definitely grown. I mean, if you just look at the statistics, we have a record number of hate groups that came into being under his administration. And we see that he is openly coddling these very violent organizations that oftentimes target us. When you look specifically at what's the trickle-down effects of eliminating Roe would be, that specifically, in my mind, targets Black women, given that we are 4 times more likely to die in pregnancy and childbirth than our white female counterparts. And so these are literally life and death issues. And as we are looking towards the midterm elections, I think the thing that we have to be very cognizant of is this is a key way in which we have to fight back in order to begin that long journey of repairing the damage that's been done. And what role do you see, Dr. Avis, the community playing in that process? Because I still think that we're still kind of like very passive, yes. In our support. And, even for men, I think that, I know that there are a number of brothers in the community who are like, yeah, I support, women's rights, reproductive rights, equal pay, all of those things. But I still feel like we're still the minority, right? You know what I mean? That there hasn't been a full blown out effort by the community. And I've even seen some women pushing back on certain things, and surprisingly. So I'm like, wait a minute, as a community, we need to have some real conversations before, we can talk about policy, before we can talk about, law. The fact is that in our culture, we haven't reconciled on where we stand to help other women get further ahead. Are you seeing that same dynamic?
I definitely am. It's really, honestly, it's sad for me to see the amount of fracture between, in many instances, I would say just Black men and Black women in our community right now. It is disturbing, to say the least, to see a lot of hate-filled conversations that I have seen openly on social media. It is tragic. It is sad. And I want people to really think about this. Who does it benefit to have us fight each other like this? Think about that for a minute. Who does it benefit to have us hating each other in the way that I am seeing it, with the language that we are throwing at each other, both men and women, specifically in the Black community. What is going on? Why do you think that has happened? I'm not, ancient, but I'm old enough to know, to remember a moment when there wasn't this vocal, this loud and overwhelming animosity between us in these public spaces like this. Yes. And so it makes me wonder if there has been some specific targeting of messaging to the Black community, specifically to disunite us in this way, because when we are not together, when we are not unified, when we are fighting each other, that leaves the door wide open for other people to come in and do whatever they want to us, and we will not even notice that it's going on.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And I would have to agree, Doc, that I would say within the past 10 years, the level of vitriol that we see communicated from men to women and women to men is so, it gets so bad. And I remember having conversations about men and women, relationships, and even, running a household. It's getting down to this issue of pointing blame.
Yes.
And I'm like, where do we, and it's hard to even on a space like this, it's like, I don't even want to have those conversations without having an expert voice, just simply because we got into our heads so many crazy thoughts about each other that it's like we need somebody to buffer or to help to debunk some of the mythology that we see that we have about each other. And I'm like, this is where did you get this from? And when we're looking at women, the value of women, this is going back to this campaign of A Day Without Us. Mm-hmm. And Keena, I want you to pop up on the screen, bro, just a little bit about what was reported in the Root as it relates to this day. Take a look at this, folks. When you're talking about A Day Without Us, this is an event that was, this happened again last Friday. Black women from several reproductive and racial justice organizations are challenging Americans to put down their work and come together for a collective day of action that they call the Day Without Us. An event which is being organized by advocates at the Frontline, Netroots Nation, and several other national advocacy partners also marks the 46th anniversary of the Hyde Amendment. And for those who don't know, the Hyde Amendment blocks federal Medicaid dollars, along with all other federal funds, from going towards abortion care, meaning Medicaid recipients have to pay out of pocket for care. Many Black reproductive advocates argue that keeping Hyde in place makes abortion care costs prohibitive for low-income folks who simply can't afford the hundreds or even thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs for abortion care. So when we're looking at some of the big policies, it's hard. It's hard for us to even get to that place if we don't find some consensus among each other first. And absolutely. I don't know how to do that, Dr. Davis. I really don't. I don't know if we just need to have some more guided conversations about this, because, or if it's a matter of generation, because you got 25, 30, 35-year-old Black men who say, man, all these women are a bunch of this and that. And all these young ladies, like all these dudes or N-words are a bunch of this and that. Like, I don't know how we can even get to that place of talking about keeping the Hyde Amendment in place if we can't even see the value of ourselves just from personality.
Oh my God, that's so true. And that's what makes this moment so potentially tragic. Well, not even potentially, tragic in my eyes. Because you might recall, you remember the studies that showed, for example, in the election that actually resulted in Donald Trump sliding into the White House, there were some studies that was done after that talked about all the money that was injected in that campaign from right-wing entities here in the United States, as well as even from Russia, specifically targeting the Black community with messaging that was meant to make us think that the person online was actually a Black person, but it wasn't. And that person, and they were targeting us with messaging to make us not want to vote at minimum, or make us vote for Trump. But the main thing was to make us not vote. They wanted to suppress our vote. And it was a very effective campaign. They spent more money on the Black community trying to suppress our vote than on any other community. For example, than they spent on the white community trying to get them to get out to the vote, for example, for Donald Trump. Now, here is why I'm bringing that up. As I alluded to, these types of vitriolic leanings, to me, they are a somewhat recent phenomena, you know, and it's tied to so much in our culture, but it makes me wonder, it makes me feel like we're getting played. Are we not seeing the same? Is it possible that the same sort of activities can be going on right now, injecting, if it's not complete trolls like was the case, or bots like was the case previously, are people being paid to inject specific vitriolic venom in this space, one against the other? Because what you said is absolutely correct. When we are busy fighting each other, name calling each other, hating literally each other, then guess what? They get to run amok in terms of all of their policy goals that they have, that they're going after. And you're exactly right. How can we unify around helping poor women be able to access reproductive freedom and reproductive justice if we sit in here calling each other every name but, you know, child of God, as my mom would say? You know, it is crazy to see what's going on. I mean, I was speaking to my assistant about this the other day. I feel like right now we are under attack as a community. We are at war, or we have entities that are at war against us, but we don't even realize it. And you can't even win a fight if you don't know that you're in a battle. You can't win the fight if you don't even realize you're in a battle. And my fear is that right now we are in this battle and we don't even know it. And that means that we're going to lose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jules, I want to bring you into this conversation as well, and share your thoughts. Pose your questions to Dr. Avis Jones, the Weaver, who has always talked about these issues on Roland's show. But, you know, looking at the big picture, Jules, we got a lot of work to do. And it's important that Black men stand in support of Black women, not just in words, but in deeds as well.
Right. So a couple of things that Dr. Avis brought up, and I think they were key. So when she started talking, I started thinking about coming from different communities. So a former community I lived in the city, it's like when you look around, all you see are liquor stores and you see, you know, corner stores. Those are the type of things that are trying to implant into that community to keep that community doing what it's continued to do, so it doesn't focus on trying to get out of that situation. And that's the same thing I feel like it relates when talking about women's rights. It's like when she's saying that, you know, we're fighting against each other so much as far as the culture because we're implanted with what's been given to us around in our spaces via social media or via our actual lives. And so much is being brought to us negative that's around us that all we know is the negativity. So instead of trying to fight for what's right to get out of those situations, we're continually battling against each other. And then there goes the issue at hand being taken away from us again, of women, of Black women. Now is no longer going to be on the forefront because we can't even focus on getting ourselves out of these situations because we're now battling against ourselves. I remember a key story I used to tell people all the time. It's like when I did a lot of my community activism work, if you notice, a lot of times I don't associate my name with but so many different community organizations. The problem with that is because everybody wants to be the leader to fix the community, but nobody wants to come together and say, hey, we all got the same ideas, let's work together. No, there's always a power struggle. So somebody has to be on top. Oh, this is my idea. This is what I bought. Instead of, hey, they're doing the same thing I'm doing. They're doing the same thing we're doing. We all working the same goals. Let's push the goal together. But it's too many minor organizations all doing the same thing. Look how many organizations in the city. Look how many clubs and different things are trying to push the same agendas, whether it's for women's rights or for urban rights as well in these communities. And it's like, churches even as well, because I can bring up the religious side as well, them trying to do their part. But it's like, hey, if you sit down and focus on the issue and let the issue be the drive instead of your personal clout or your personal following on social media or your personal media gain that you can get or financial gain, then that's where the issue lies. And that's the point that when she spoke about that, that's what struck the most with me.
So, you know, and I think that Dr. Avis, that when we're talking about you, and I think Jules is hitting on a cultural point, which I think is the trend right now, that if you talk about male-female relationships, then you're going to get some attention, right?
Oh,
that
yeah.
if you I saw some dude my wife showed me some post some dude made about Rihanna performing at the Super Bowl and how by her just having her baby, she needs to be at home. He said, as a man, I would encourage you to stay at home with your child, not move around as much, take care of yourself. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? You just some random black man telling a sister as if women never worked while they were pregnant or didn't go back to work after they gave birth in a very short period of time. Don't jump around, don't, sister, you should be home. I'm looking at this guy like, boy, you on the wrong side. And boy, did the internet light his ass up. I ain't seen so many black, but then a thought to me came to my mind was like, dude is just trying to get some he was just trying to get some clout, right? And here's the problem. You are going in on your sister.
Yeah.
And Doc, you asked this question, what do we gain? You really gain nothing.
Oh my God.
We really gain nothing, right?
Exactly.
And when I see those and I see posts like this all the time from black men. I see posts, crazy ass posts from black women about men. And I'm thinking to myself, man, we really going in the wrong direction because the enemy of our rise is looking at all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it. And so so people don't think it's a conspiracy theory for me, Doc. You said it. You said something must be going on where ideas are being introduced into the conversations, whether it's in a social media post, whether it's in meetings. Something is going on to disrupt the unity of black men and black women. Something is legitimately going on. And I think that we as our people, and this is why we have the show, we have to recognize when somebody trying to sow a seed of dissension among the family.
Yes. Yes, we sure do. I mean, come on now. If we know just a little bit about our history, okay, then we would know, when has there not been a moment? I mean, it just came out the other day about how the FBI had been, in essence, spying on Aretha Franklin for 40 years, right? All the way up to, all the way up to, I think it was 2007. I mean, this is very, very recent. So what I'm suggesting here is, when have there not been outside forces attempting to redirect our narrative from within, from infiltrating us, right? And making us to think the way that they want us to think in order to cause internal dissension. The whole point of COINTELPRO was not only to murder people, but also to cause internal dissension, right? And I just want people to understand that hasn't gone away. And it's beyond even the old system, and it's beyond the FBI. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. That's why I'm suggesting that. I think about my parents. I think about that generation. I don't even have to think that long back. I mean, I'm just thinking about old school hip hop, like my era of hip hop in the 1980s, for example. That's how old school, that's a real old school hip hop. So, in that moment, even if you're just talking about hip hop and how what the focus was, what we talked about, the focus on history, on improving our self-esteem, on knowing who we are, on respecting one another as men, as black men and black women, and the very intentional shift in the direction of the music and the messaging that was then infiltrated into our culture from that very intentional shift. And you think about so many things that have happened since then in terms of what's going on in social media. My suggestion is we do have to be more discerning about the what we are hearing in these public spheres, and then be able to critique who benefits from us believing this. And when you start to think in that way, then you can have a more critical eye at the information that you are being spoon-fed, and be more selective about what you value and what you don't pay 1 second's notice to, so that you won't get caught up in that system of hurting ourselves so that other people can win.
Well, I see a couple of things, and Jules and Doc, I would love to get your take on this. One is, I think now we're at a place where Black men have a different value system than Black women. We're seeing things differently as it relates to community, as it relates to family, as it relates to ourselves. So our value system seems to be misaligned from each other. The other thing is, we're seeing that because, and I've been wanting to talk about this, Dr. Avis, there's been a recent book that's come out called Of Boys and Men. And Of Boys and Men, the author talks about how the status of the man, not just Black man, but the man in America, is on the decline, whether you're talking about in the educational space, the social space, the economic space, that we're seeing men on a decline, and so much so that men no longer feel motivated to lead the household, to lead the communities. And we suffer, and we're seeing what they call an aspiration gap, where men don't have the same drive and ambition and motivation as women. So I'm seeing all of these things in play, and I'm thinking to myself, Dr. Avis and Jules, like, that just goes to show us the misalignment. We got the values issue. Now you got men who the country is looking down upon, not just Black men, because white men are suffering too, right? Latino men. But we're seeing that men and manhood is under, for lack of a better word, is under attack, so much so that men just don't want to be men no more. Men don't want to be the support. Men don't want to be the backbone. Men don't want to be the foundation. And so women have to step up to lead. Women have to say, I want autonomy of my body. Women have to say, I want to be paid more, without the voice of a man behind them. And I'm wondering, with this trend going, are we going to see a different America in the next 10 to 15 years? We often talk about the idea of a woman not being president, but I can see that happening. I can really see that happening, because people are losing faith and hope in men.
Interesting.
Jules, what's your take, bro?
You ready? Because I'm
ready, Jules. I'm ready.
Okay. So I hear about it all the time, and I see it often. So preface myself, my comments are just pertaining to me and my spaces, so nobody take offense. I came from a Black woman. I was raised by a great Black woman. I have a great father. Let's not take nothing from that. But I grew up in a single parent household. So my mother did a lot to make sure that I was on a straight and narrow to get to where I had to get to in life, to the stage now. Because I'm on the culture. So obviously I got some little intellect to be on the show to talk and discuss and a myriad of topics, whether it be politics, sports, women's rights, whatever. I can talk it because of what I was raised by, what I was seeing, and what I seen growing up. The conversations that I hear a lot of times in this day and age, and I'm sad to say, but I'm going to say it, is about the lack of the power of the respect of the man. The men now are soft. SAWFT, soft. Okay? And that's what Black women have to deal with on a consistent basis. They don't want to work. They don't have no ambitions. They don't want education. Some not even raising their children. And that's the problem that's keep on happening. And that what's happening is you're having more and more generations create more and more soft men. So there's no more masculinity in the man because it's being taken away from us on both sides of the argument, whether it's from the men being raised in their communities or from the argument of, from what we're looking at a political state or day and time and age now where, the masculine man is not the dominant now because you have so many different types of genders and things going on and agendas being preached in the forefront of social media and culture right now. So there's so many different ways that a man is being broken down, whether it's from the household, from his community, or from the actual state of the world. So now that they're trying to find an identity and they've been the problem finding the identity, a lot of them are so, men are short-minded when it comes to some issues like this that they're just going with what they see instead of trying to get the information and gain and research to be better, do better, and provide better, to be the providers that we're supposed supposed to be and take care of the responsibilities that we're supposed to take care of. Simple things like taking out trash or dumb things like that you won't even do, but you stand in a woman's house for 20, 30 days straight, not doing nothing but sitting on your behind. But, you know, I'm sorry.
Jules, calm down, brother.
I'm sorry, Culture. I've been on one today. I'm sorry.
Hey, look. If you soft, SAWFT, if you soft, don't come over here in this space. No, but I hear you, Jules, and I feel like Dr. Avis, that because of this cultural space that we find ourselves in, it all leads us back, just going back to where women stand on these issues. Yeah. It's all opening the door for women to be under attack.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think about, for example, oftentimes Black women are criticized for being, in essence, too strong, like the strong Black woman, and too independent, all those things. And therefore, we're not perceived as very feminine, for example. And I think the larger point that was made here is that, you know, we are who we are because this is who we have to be to survive, period. And it's you know, that comes from a history of, you know, being right beside you all, being right beside our men, you know, in the fields, in those spaces where we've been the brunt of the whip, just like you, right? And so we have built up this strength that, unfortunately, I believe sometimes we're attacked for being who we've had to be to survive. And not just for us to survive, but for us to be able to make sure that our children survive, for us to make sure that you survive. We couldn't be the dainty little feminine woman that maybe a white woman could be. If we were that, there would be no Black people in this country right now. I'll be perfectly honest with you, because we would have been killed off. Okay. We had to be who we had to be to survive. And all that I ask as a Black woman is that we are not castigated for being that. Is that we are recognized, and, you know, recognized for being that source of sort of strength that makes sure that our family is here, that our family lives, that our children are able to, you know, have their future, and be recognized for that and not be castigated for it. I think that, to me, is a minimal ask that I would like to see, a respect for who we are and who we have been and who we continue to be in order for us to live and thrive in this nation.